What is up, Sportz Hive Nation? I'm your favorite host, the man behind the mic, Jacob Hyde, or I'm also known as World of College Basketball on Twitter. Another Tuesday has come around, and that means it is time for the World of College Basketball show. We can all say it. I can finally say it. March is finally here. We're ballin' like March Madness. I have a lot to talk about since the last time we met, so without further ado, let's get into it. So this last week of college basketball has just been crazy nuts, and the first thing I want to start with is just start from last Tuesday when we last talked and go through Friday, and then we'll dive into the weekend more. But for first, I just want to go from Tuesday through Friday and pick out the biggest highlights from those games. And first, we all know the biggest highlight of those games was Duke losing to Wake Forest at Wake Forest in overtime. And that was pretty surprising. Wake Forest is not a very good team, and Duke went in there and lost in overtime, and they obviously dropped in the top 25. And later in the weekend, they lost to Virginia, which led them to lose 3 out of their last 4 games to ranked opponents. So they are on the downward spiral going into March, and that is not the direction you want to be going. They have to pick up their game. Trey Jones has to play better. He has to be the leader. Obviously, Vernon Carey down low, he's a monster. He's going to have to be a monster as well going into the ACC tournament and March Madness if they want to make a run at the title. The second thing I saw during the last week was Michigan State got back on track. They won twice this past week. They won on Tuesday night, last week Tuesday, against Iowa. And then on Saturday, they beat Maryland on the road in Maryland. So that was a huge game for Cassius Winston and the Spartans. And Rocket Watts, that is a guy on the Spartans who is playing very, very well. And if he can continue to play as well as he is, they are definitely a title contender with the way Cassius Winston and Rocket Watts are both playing. And moving along into the SEC, the Kentucky Wildcats, they obviously clinched the SEC regular season title with their win over Auburn at Rupp Arena. And they are looking like they are one of the top teams in the country right now. They are dialing it in at the right time. And they also, like Michigan State, won twice last week. They beat Texas A&M, and then they beat Auburn. So those are 2 big games for the Wildcats. And they obviously got the SEC title in hand already with 1 week to go in the Power 5 conferences. And lastly, touching on the Pac-12 a little bit, UCLA, that is a team if you had told me in the beginning of the year before the season started that UCLA was going to be leading the Pac-12, they're standing alone at the top of the Pac-12 standings. And if you told me that and that they have a possibility at making the NCAA tournament, I would have told you were crazy and I wouldn't have listened to you. But now the way they are playing, they turned that whole program around. Obviously, Sharif O'Neal left the program, but they have totally flip-flopped from the way they were playing. I think they lost the first 4 games in conference, and then right now they are just on fire. They beat USC and Arizona this past week. So from Tuesday to Friday, those were the biggest stories. And now we can move on into the weekend, which was even more crazy than the weekdays. So the weekend starting on Saturday, Baylor, I'm just going to go down the list here. Baylor, Florida State, Duke, Creighton, West Virginia, Colorado, and Texas Tech. They all lost to unranked opponents from Saturday and Sunday. Creighton lost on Sunday, and Colorado lost on Sunday. But that is 7 teams in the top 25 lost to unranked opponents, and that was not all. Maryland also being inside of the top 10, they lost to a ranked opponent. That was number 24 at the time, Michigan State, and number 19, Michigan, lost to number 3, Ohio State on Sunday. So 9 total ranked teams lost on the weekend. And I said on my last episode that not this past Saturday, but last Saturday was the craziest Saturday in sports when Kansas and Baylor played, and Baylor lost. And a bunch of ranked teams, lost on that weekend. But this weekend, I think I changed my mind. This weekend has to be the craziest weekend in college basketball so far this year. And it fit that Sunday was March 1st, and Creighton just got blown out by a St. John's team by 20 points. And it was only fitting because, March is here. And talking about UCLA again, in the weekend, UCLA did beat Arizona at home on Saturday night. I got to watch that game. Obviously, Bill Walton was commentating, so I was kind of distracted by him. But overall, UCLA and Arizona was a great game. They were going back and forth, and at the end, they were going back and forth. And UCLA just brought out their game and topped off the Arizona Wildcats, and they sit alone of the Pac-12 standings ahead of Oregon. Like I said, there's one more week of all Power 5 conferences, and then they finally get to hit their tournaments. So I have some predictions for all Power 5 conferences. So that's the Big East, Big 12, Big 10, ACC, and SEC. I have predictions on who I think will come out on top for the regular season title for each conference. So I'm going to start with the Big East, and my pick for the Big East is going to be Creighton. I know Seton Hall is on a roll, and even though Creighton lost this past Sunday, I do think that they'll leapfrog Seton Hall and maybe at least come out with a share of the Big East title. Next is the Big 12, and I think Kansas will take the regular season title there. They just escaped Kansas State this weekend, and obviously Baylor lost to TCU, so it gives them a little breathing room in the Big 12. So I think Kansas will win that. Moving on, the Big 10, that's probably going to be the best finish in college basketball with the conference. And I think there's like 5, 6, maybe 7 teams that are in the hunt to get a share of the regular season title, and there will be a share, but I think it'll be Maryland and Illinois that take the title home this year. The ACC, I know Florida State did lose against Clemson on Saturday, but I do think they come out and win the ACC for the regular season. And lastly, the SEC, obviously it is Kentucky. They already clinched the SEC Conference regular season title. So the next thing I want to talk about on today's show is just go through the top 25. I mean, it is the last week of the top 25 with the conference tournaments for the Power 5 conferences starting next week. So there's going to be one more week of the top 25, I believe. I'm not for sure on that, but I'll just go down the list here, and I'll talk about some movements that happened from this past week to this week. Number 1, it is going to be Kansas. Kansas will stay there for a second consecutive week. Gonzaga will move up a spot to number 2. Number 3 will be Dayton. They move up a spot from 4. Number 4 will be the Baylor Bears. They drop from the 2 spot after losing to TCU this past weekend. Number 5 is San Diego State. They will stay put. Kentucky will move up to the 6th rank after beating Texas A&M and Auburn this past week. Number 7 will be Florida State. They drop a spot. Number 8 is Seton Hall. They move up from 13. Number 9 is Maryland. Number 10 is Louisville. Number 11 is Creighton. Number 12 is Duke. They drop from 7 after losing to Virginia this weekend and Wake Forest during the week. Number 13 is Oregon. Number 14 is Villanova. 15 is BYU. 16 is Michigan State. Number 17 is the Auburn Tigers. Number 18, the Iowa Hawkeyes. Number 19, Ohio State. Number 20, Penn State. Number 21, Houston. Number 22, Virginia. They get into the top 25 after beating Duke. Number 23 is Illinois. Number 24 is Wisconsin. They have won 6 in a row, and they are still in the hunt for the Big Ten regular season title. They beat Minnesota. on Sunday night. So they move into the top 25 at number 24. And closing out the top 25 for this week are the Michigan Wolverines. They drop to 25 after being 19. And the one thing that's funny about this top 25 is from 16 down, there are a bunch of Big Ten teams. There's Michigan State, Iowa, Ohio State, Penn State, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So there are 7 Big Ten teams within 16 ranked and the 25 ranked. So that just shows how well the Big Ten is this year and how hard it is to win in that conference. So I just wrapped up the top 25. So next, I want to talk about some brackets. I know that's what everybody is here for. It is March 3rd, and everybody's looking at all the brackets, the predicted brackets, and I'm looking right here at Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology, and I will just go through the seedings. I'll try to go through all the seedings here. I don't know how much you guys want to know about the lower seeds, but I will start with the upper seeds and go down the list. So with Joe Lunardi's bracketology, his 1 seeds right now are Kansas, Baylor, San Diego State, and Gonzaga. His 2 seeds are Seton Hall, Maryland, Dayton, and Florida State. His 3 seeds are Louisville, Villanova, Duke, and Kentucky. I can see Kentucky. They'll try to move up to a 2 seed. I think that is going to happen with the Wildcats. The 4 seeds are Penn State, Oregon, Michigan State, and Creighton. I honestly don't know. I don't know this. I don't like this move by Joe Lunardi. Even though Creighton did lose to St. John's by 20, they were a 2 seed originally before that loss, and I didn't think that they should have dropped all the way to a 4 seed. I don't know why he dropped Creighton 2 seed lines, but that's just me. He has his own opinion. I have my own opinion. Moving along, the 5 seeds are Colorado, Wisconsin, Auburn, and Iowa. The 6 seeds, he has Ohio State, Arizona, Michigan, and BYU. The 7 seeds are Houston, West Virginia, Butler, and Marquette. The 8 seeds are St. Mary's, Texas Tech, Illinois, and LSU. The 9 seeds are Virginia, Providence. Providence is off the bubble after they beat Villanova on the road. So they are officially off the bubble and into a 9 seed. The last 2 9 seeds are Xavier and Florida. The 10 seeds are Indiana, Northern Iowa, Oklahoma, and Arizona State. The 11 seeds are USC, Rutgers, East Tennessee State, and a play-in game between Cincinnati and Stanford. The 12 seeds are Liberty, Yale, UCLA, and a play-in game between Wichita State and Utah State. 13 seeds are North Texas, New Mexico State, Stephen A. F. Austin, and Vermont. The 14 seeds are Belmont, Hofstra, Colgate, and UC Irvine. The 15 seeds are North Dakota State, Bowling Green, Wright State, and Little Rock. And to wrap out Joe Lunardi's bracketology predictions, and this is from March 2nd, so yesterday on Monday, is the latest I have for Joe Lunardi. And to wrap out his bracket, he has a play-in game between North Carolina A&T and Robert Morris. He has Radford as the second 16 seed, Montana as the third, and a play-in game between Prairie View A&M and Siena. So my thoughts on this bracket, I actually kind of like it. I like Providence moving up to the 9 seed. Obviously, they've beaten like 4 or 5 ranked teams in a row, so they have the right to move up to that 9 seed, and because they've been playing so well under Ed Cooley. Wisconsin staying at that 5 seed. It's going to be a dangerous 5 seed the way they are playing. Obviously, like I said early in the show, they have won 6 straight games. So they are also on a roll. My one thing I did not agree on was the Creighton move. They dropped from a 2 seed to a 4 seed after that loss against St. John's. I don't like it because all of February they've been dominating. Any team they've played against, they've just been dominating and winning games by a lot. And they just played overall so well in February. In that one game, obviously it was March 1st on Sunday. They had that one game against St. John's on the road, and they lost by 20. But, I mean, I don't see that worthy of dropping 2 seed lines after they just dominated the month of February. So, if anything, maybe a lower 2 or even a high 3 would have been my move, not dropping all the way down to a 4. So that is my thoughts on bracketology. I just wanted to go through the bracket and show the updated stuff on what Joe Lenardi had, as we are less than 2 weeks away from a bracket. Also, lastly, I will have my games of the week, and I will also start with some of the conference tournaments that are starting this week. So I'll begin with the Atlantic Sun tournament is starting today, Tuesday, March 3rd, and the 1 seed for that tournament is the Liberty Flames. The next conference tournament is the Patriot League, and that is also starting today, Tuesday, March 3rd, and the 1 seed in that tournament is Colgate. Next, the Big South starts also today, Tuesday, March 3rd, and the 1 seed in that tournament is Radford. And the last tournament that starts officially today, Tuesday, March 3rd, is the Horizon League. The Horizon League, and that the 1 seed in that tournament is Wright State. Starting with the Northeast Conference that is starting tomorrow, Wednesday, March 4th, and the 1 seed in that tournament is Robert Morris. Next, the Mountain West Conference also starts on Wednesday, March 4th, which is tomorrow. And the 1 seed in that tournament is San Diego State University. They have 1 loss coming into the conference tournament. So we will see how they play out in that conference. Ohio Valley Conference, that starts tomorrow, Wednesday, March 4th. And the 1 seed in that tournament is Belmont. West Coast Conference tournament starts Thursday, March 5th. And the 1 seed in that tournament is Gonzaga. The Missouri Valley Conference starts Thursday, March 5th. And the 1 seed in that tournament is UNI. And Southern Conference starts Friday, March 6th. And the 1 seed in that tournament is East Tennessee State. And the Summit League, second to last tournament starting this week. That starts going to be starting on Saturday. It's going to start on the weekend, March 7th. And the 1 seed in that tournament is North Dakota State. And lastly, the Sun Belt tournament, conference tournament, is also starting on Saturday, March 7th. So there's a bunch of mid-major tournaments starting this week, and those are all of them. And if you guys didn't have a chance, I am actually in a conference tournament pool, and you get to predict all the brackets for all the conferences. And for me, it was a $10 buy-in. But I honestly think it's fun because myself, with my Twitter page, I focus more on the Power 5 conferences like the ACC and the SEC and the Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and I'll look at some mid-majors like the Atlantic Sun and the Horizon League and Ohio Valley and the West Coast Conference, obviously, and like Missouri Valley Conference. But some of these I do not have much. I do not have a lot of takes on, and I do not know a lot about those conferences. So it's actually really fun to get out of my comfort zone and pick these different conferences because some of them I just did not know, and I have to look up stuff and do a lot of research for these tournaments and pick them. So if you guys did not have a chance, if you guys want to do that, it is actually a really fun thing to do, and it just, like I said, it gets me out of my comfort zone. And if you guys like that kind of thing, you guys should do that also. But lastly, on the show today, to wrap up the show, there's going to be ranked play going on throughout the whole week. Like I said, it's the last week of the Power 5 conferences, so there's still going to be ranked play going on. And I have a lot of games of the week here. There's a lot of good games in the final week of the regular season. And to begin, I have the Michigan State Spartans versus Rutgers, and that game is happening tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And I will take Cassius Winston, Rocket Watts, and the Spartans to take down Rutgers on the road. Next is an SEC matchup that is happening tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is Tennessee versus Kentucky, and I will take Kentucky at home. The next game in the Big 12, TCU versus Kansas. That game is happening Wednesday, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and TCU is coming off that game against Baylor where they beat them at home, and now they go to Allen Fieldhouse to take on the number one team in the country. I think they will, honestly, in my opinion, I think they will make it a close game, but I think Kansas, Devon Dotson, and Azubuike will have a great game, and I think Kansas will take it at home. The next game is a Big East matchup, Villanova versus Seton Hall. That game is happening tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will take Seton Hall at home. The next in the Big Ten, Illinois still looking to get the Big Ten regular season title. They will be facing off against Ohio State on the road, and that game is happening Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will take Ohio State on the road. They got a big win on Sunday against Michigan, so I think that they will beat Illinois and take Illinois out of the conversation for the Big Ten. Next is Baylor versus West Virginia, which is happening on Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, one of the first games to play on Saturday, and I will take Baylor on the road in bounce back fashion. West Virginia, they started hot. They had a great start of the year, and then they just started falling as they went through the Big 12 conference. So I will take the Bears on the road over the Mountaineers. Next, even though Kentucky did get the SEC title already for the regular season, it is Kentucky versus Florida. That game is happening Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will take Florida on at home because I think Kentucky, they'll still play seriously, but they have the regular season title in hand, so I think Florida will sneak out a victory here. The next game is Seton Hall versus Creighton. This is a huge Big East matchup, and that game is happening Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This is probably going to be for the Big East title, honestly. Saturday afternoon, must watch game, and I will take Creighton because I obviously picked Creighton to win the Big East, so I will take Creighton at home. The next game is UNC versus Duke, one of the biggest rivalries, if not the biggest rivalry in college basketball ever. That game is happening prime time Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will take a Duke at home. The next game happening Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, that is Michigan versus Maryland, and I will take Maryland at home. There's 3 Big Ten matchups on Sunday, and the second is Ohio State versus Michigan State, Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will take Michigan State at home. And lastly, in the Big Ten, on Sunday is Iowa versus Illinois, and that is happening 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday night, and I will take Iowa on the road. I really like Luka Garza and how he has been playing all year. He has honestly surprised a lot of us, and he is one of the national Player of the Year candidates, and I think he has a really good chance of winning it this year. So that just about wraps up our show today. We just concluded with the games of the week that I thought were the biggest games coming from Tuesday all the way into the next time we meet. So that should do it for this week's episode. If you guys do not know, we have all these different shows going on, and now we have shows coming out Sunday through Friday. Monday is a regular episode of the Sportz Hive podcast. Tuesday is going to be with me right here on the World of College Basketball show. Wednesday is the Fantasy Wire with Carrick Jackson. Thursday is an Intentional Balk with my co-host Luke Hoffman and our friend Charlie Gutierrez. Friday is another regular episode of the Sportz Hive podcast. And Sunday is another new show, and it is called In Case You Missed It with Kobe Lynch. So I hope you guys enjoy the start of March college basketball. It is going to be completely nuts. And going into March Madness, which I will talk more about next week, it's going to be really crazy. And I hope you guys enjoy this whole week of college basketball with the start of the conference tournaments and just other ranked play. And I will see you guys, all of you guys, back here next week on the World of College Basketball show.